I'm the boring kind of responsible. The kind who has a spreadsheet for the spreadsheet. I'm 41. I drive my paid-off Honda until the wheels complain, and I still get a tiny rush when I move money from checking to savings like I'm doing something heroic. My wife, Megan, used to tease me for it, Captain Budget. But it was affectionate. We were steady. 2 kids, a mortgage we could handle, and a routine that felt like a well-written function. Predictable inputs, predictable outputs. I'm a senior engineer at a mid-sized payments company. Not glamorous. We don't make apps that go viral. We make the invisible stuff behind the swipe. It's the kind of job where you can go a whole year without telling anyone what you do because their eyes glaze over when you say, settlement batch processing. The mistake I made started as one of those no-big-deal tickets. Tiny fix. A rounding issue in a reconciliation job that ran at 2:10 a.m. long after anyone with a human soul was asleep. I pushed it on a Thursday night because I wanted my weekend clean. The issue was simple on paper. Certain merchant refunds were getting a 1-cent discrepancy after currency conversion. The system would reconcile the merchant's ledger against the processor's statement and flag anything off by more than a cent. Our job was to reduce noise. I changed a line that decided when to round up versus down. In our internal doc, it was bankers rounding. In my brain at 9:47 p.m. it was round to nearest and move on with your life. I wrote tests. They passed. I opened a PR. 2 people approved, mostly on autopilot because it looked harmless. We deployed it the next morning. By Monday, the discrepancy alerts dropped. My manager, Dan, sent a thumbs-up emoji in Slack. I felt smug in that quiet way responsible people feel smug. Like I just rotated the tires and beaten entropy for another 5,000 miles. Then our fraud team flagged something weird. A pattern of refunds and recharges bouncing between a handful of small online merchants. It looked like someone playing ping-pong with transactions. Dan asked me to hop on a call. At first, it didn't feel like my problem. Fraud is its own department, with its own jargon and its own grim humor. But on the screen share, the analyst zoomed in on the ledger entries and said, "This is happening after your reconciliation run. The cents line up too perfectly." I stared at the numbers. Every loop, charge, refund, charge again was netting a penny. Not always, but often enough that over thousands of loops it became real money. Took me about 30 seconds to find the cause. My change made a specific edge case round in the customer's favor on refunds and in the merchant's favor on recharges. 1 penny each cycle, tiny, invisible, but consistent if you hit the right currency pair and timing window. I felt that cold rush behind my ribs. The one you get when your body realizes your life just entered a new branch and the old one is gone. We patched it that afternoon and put a temporary block on the merchants involved. I went home and told Megan, carefully, like I was reading an incident report, I made a rounding mistake. It might cost the company some money, but we fixed it. She kissed my cheek and said, "You're not your job." I believed her. The story didn't stay inside our company. 3 days later, my teenage niece texted me a TikTok link with no context. It was a guy in a backwards hat speaking like he'd discovered fire. "Bro, if you run a refund loop on this payment processor, you can farm pennies. Don't be greedy. It's free money." Free money. The phrase made me nauseous. The comments were worse. People bragging about turning $20 into $200 overnight. Someone posted a spreadsheet. Someone else said, "Delete this before they patch it." Someone replied, "Too late. It's everywhere." It became a trend with a cute name, penny pumping, and the way the internet treated it made me feel like I'd left a loaded gun on a playground and people were rating it 5 stars. Dan called an emergency meeting. Legal was there. PR was there. A VP I'd never met was there, with the tight smile of someone calculating stock impact. They didn't say my name. Not once. But every sentence felt like it had my fingerprints. We'd already patched the bug, but now thousands of people were trying it, hammering our system, costing merchants money, creating chargeback hell. The pennies added up in a way that made the whole thing absurd. Millions in float shifting around because of a rounding decision I made while thinking about my weekend. I told myself the important thing was to be honest and useful. I documented everything. I helped write a postmortem. I stayed late. I answered questions from legal in a windowless room that smelled like burnt coffee and panic. Dan kept saying, "We'll get through it." But his eyes didn't match. At home, I was still calm. At least in the way people are calm when they're carefully holding a bowl that's already cracked. I didn't yell. I didn't drink. I just stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m. Doing math, how many pennies per loop, how many loops per hour, how many hours until someone with real money noticed. Megan started asking practical questions. Could they fire you? Could they sue you? No, I said too quickly. It's on the company. We have controls. It's not criminal. She nodded, but she started checking our bank account more. I noticed because she left the app open on the kitchen counter like she wanted me to see she was being responsible too. That's when the first twist landed. Soft as a footstep, but heavy as a door closing. A deposit hit our checking account. $9,842.17. The description was a weird string of letters and numbers like a crypto wallet reference, except it was a standard ACH. Megan said, "Oh, that's from my mom. She's helping with the roof." Her mom had never helped with anything. Her mom kept score with money like it was a sport. I wanted to believe Megan, so I did. The company sent out a formal email. Anyone involved in the incident was under a litigation hold. No deleting anything. No discussing with outsiders. The tone was icy. Then Dan asked me to come into a smaller meeting with HR. He did the corporate soft voice. "This isn't disciplinary. We just need clarity." They asked if I'd shared details outside the company, if I'd posted about it, if I'd told family. "No," I said. "I didn't even tell Megan specifics." HR asked if I had any unusual financial activity recently. I blinked. "What do you mean?" "Large deposits," she said, like she was asking if I'd tried a new yoga class. My stomach turned. I thought of the ACH. I thought of Megan saying roof. I thought of my niece's TikTok. I told them about the deposit, trying to keep it casual, and watched HR type. Dan's face tightened. 2 hours later, our bank froze our checking account, pending verification. We couldn't pay the mortgage online. My Captain Budget spreadsheet suddenly looked like a joke. Megan called the bank and put it on speaker. The rep said, politely, that the deposit was flagged as potentially tied to fraudulent activity, and they were obligated to investigate. Megan's mouth went flat. "This is because of your job." I opened my laptop and checked my email. There was a message from our internal investigations team requesting an interview, too. I looked at Megan. "We need to talk about that money." She stood up so fast her chair scraped. "I told you, my mom," but her eyes flicked away like she was checking an exit. In the interview, investigations laid out something I hadn't considered. While the trend was viral, the earliest exploitation attempts happened before TikTok. Before my niece. Before the public knew. They showed me timestamps of transactions. Refund loops starting within an hour of our Friday deployment. Someone had been ready. Someone either discovered it instantly or already knew how to trigger it. I said the only honest thing. I don't know how anyone could have known that fast. The investigator, a woman named Priya, asked, "Do you gamble? Trade crypto? Have financial stress?" "No," I said. "We're fine." She slid a paper across the table. "We have evidence of a personal account connected to this exploitation." My heart tried to climb my throat. "Mine?" She shook her head. "Not in your name." She pointed to the routing and account numbers. It was an account at a local credit union. I recognized the last 4 digits instantly because I'd heard them once, years ago, when Megan set up a joint account for house projects. Megan had an account I wasn't on. The account was receiving money from refund loops. I drove home in a fog, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only stable thing left in my life. I rehearsed rational explanations. Maybe identity theft. Maybe someone opened it in her name. Maybe Megan was in the laundry room when I walked in. The smell of detergent hit me like a memory of normal life. I said, very calmly, "Show me your credit union account." She didn't ask why. That's what broke me. Megan sat at the kitchen table and logged in. Her hands shook just enough to be noticeable. The balance was $62,411.08. There were dozens of deposits, some labeled like normal transfers, some labeled like strings of nonsense. It looked like a river of pennies that had turned into a flood. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. "What is this?" She swallowed. "It started small." My voice stayed measured because I didn't know what else to do. "Explain." She told me, bit by bit, like someone peeling a bandage slowly so it hurts longer. Her cousin Tyler, who does e-commerce, texted her Friday morning saying there was a safe little arbitrage happening and she could run it through a merchant account he had. He needed someone with clean banking to receive funds because his accounts were always getting flagged. She knew it was shady. She said she knew. But she also said, "You've been so stressed about money since the kids started braces. And your company's stock options. You always say they're not real until they're real. I just wanted a cushion. A cushion made of stolen pennies." I asked, "Did you know it came from my system?" Her eyes filled. "Not at first." "Not at first," I repeated, because those words are elastic. They stretch around anything. Then she said the second twist, the one that rewrote our last week in my head. "I realized it was connected to your company on Sunday, after you told me you fixed a bug. I went still, and you kept doing it." She nodded once, almost imperceptibly. "Tyler said you already patched it, so it was like catching the last drops. And we needed it. We needed it. Like it was rent. Like it was medicine. Like it was." I didn't explode. I didn't throw anything. I just felt my sense of myself responsible in control slide sideways. Because the truth was, part of me understood the temptation. Our life looked stable, but it had hairline cracks. Megan's dad had died last year, leaving hospital bills her mom claimed were family obligations. Our son's ADHD evaluation wasn't fully covered. The roof really did need work. We weren't drowning, but we weren't floating effortlessly either. I'd built my identity on being the guy who never took shortcuts, the guy who paid extra on principle, the guy who said no to timeshares and miracle investments. But staring at that $62,000, my brain did what it does with numbers. It started allocating. Mortgage buffer, emergency fund, college savings. I hated myself for that. Megan said, "I can give it back. We can fix it." It sounded like a clean resolution, like a patch. We called Tyler. Megan put it on speaker. She told him she was done and he needed to unwind whatever he was doing. Tyler laughed. Actually laughed. "You can't unwind it, Meg. It's already moved. That money's been washed through refunds. You think the processor is gonna knock on your door? They'll eat it." I felt heat in my face. "You used my wife's account." "Bro," Tyler said, like we were friends. "Tell your company to pay you better." Then he said the third twist casually, like it was trivia. "This was in the dev notes anyway. Somebody leaked the trigger condition in a Discord before it went live." My spine went cold. Dev notes? Discord? That meant the exploit wasn't just discovered. It was circulated, which meant someone on the inside might have sold it. And I had just become the most convenient fall guy. I went back to Priya and told her everything. The secret account. Tyler. The call. I brought screenshots. I acted like cooperation could buy me innocence. Priya listened, expression unreadable. Then she asked, "When did you first notice the rounding behavior could be exploited?" "I noticed it when fraud showed me," I said. "Monday." She held my gaze. "Are you sure?" I went home and pulled up my old Slack messages. I searched my own name with keywords like rounding, edge case. 1 cent. My hands were slick on the keyboard. I found it. A message I'd sent in a dev channel 2 weeks before deployment. FYI. This rounding change could theoretically be gamed with refund loops if someone times it right. Low risk because who would do that? But maybe add a guard? Someone had replied with a laughing emoji. Another person said, "LOL, people will always find a way." Dan, my manager, had replied, "Noted, we're behind schedule. Ship it." I stared at that thread until my vision blurred. I hadn't forgotten it. I'd filed it under not my call, like a responsible employee, but it meant I'd anticipated the risk. I'd named it. In a courtroom, that wouldn't look like, oops, that would look like you knew. And now my wife was sitting on $62,000 of exploited funds. That night, Megan tried to touch my arm and I flinched like she was hot. "I did it for us," she whispered. I finally raised my voice, not yelling, but sharp. "You did it because you thought money would fix the feeling of not having enough," she cried. I didn't comfort her. I felt like I'd failed at being the stable one. We tried to make it right. That was the false resolution. Megan transferred the $62,000 back to our main account, and we contacted an attorney. The attorney told us, bluntly, that returning money helps, but it doesn't erase intent. He advised we not speak to anyone else without counsel. My company sent out a notice offering a voluntary restitution portal for anyone who exploited penny pumping. They were trying to get money back quietly to reduce legal exposure. It was surreal watching my own employer treat theft like a customer service issue. Through our lawyer, we arranged to return the funds. The company accepted it, at least on paper. My bank unfroze our account. For about a week, it felt like the crisis might stay contained. Like Megan had made a terrible, desperate decision, but we'd stopped the bleeding in time. Dan even told me, "You did the right thing coming forward. This will blow over." I wanted to believe him so badly I almost did. Then my neighbor, a nurse who barely knows my name, said in passing while getting the mail, "Hey, aren't you the Pennything guy?" My stomach dropped. "What?" She held up her phone. "It's on Facebook. Some guy said his cousin works at the company and the engineer's wife got caught." The ground shifted again. Because we hadn't just returned money. We'd become a story. And stories don't need facts. They need villains. The fourth twist arrived in an email from legal. They were terminating me for cause due to failure to disclose a conflict of interest and negligence resulting in material harm. They cited my Slack message, the one where I'd warned it could be gamed, as evidence I knew the risk and didn't escalate properly. They also mentioned unauthorized benefit derived by a member of your household. Household, like Megan was a pet who'd gotten into the trash. I called Dan. He didn't pick up. I texted. Nothing. I drove to the office anyway, badge in hand like a person in denial. Security stopped me. They were polite, which was worse. In the parking lot, I finally got Dan on the phone. He sighed like I was exhausting him. "I'm sorry. It's above me. Did you leak it?" I blurted because my brain was hunting for a shape to punch. "What? No. Jesus." "Then who did?" He paused too long. Then he said, "Look, they're saying it came from an internal doc. Someone copied deployment notes into a public channel. But they can't prove who. And you're the one whose code it was. Plus the wife thing. It's optics. Optics. A word that means we're sacrificing you to protect money." I sat in my car and realized my entire career identity, competent, careful, responsible, was worth less than a PR strategy. At home, Megan looked at my face and knew without asking. "So what do we do?" she said. For the first time in my life, I didn't have a plan. I just felt hollow. We started hemorrhaging money immediately. Cobra premiums, lawyer fees, missed bonus. The mortgage didn't care about optics. Megan's mom called and, without preamble, asked, "Did you use stolen money to pay the roof guy?" Megan tried to explain. Her mom said, "I told you money always comes with strings. Now you've tied a noose." Then Megan's mom offered help, but it was a loan with a promissory note, interest, and a lien threat if we missed a payment. It was the kind of assistance that keeps you indebted in more ways than one. Meanwhile, Tyler disappeared. His phone went dead. His Instagram was wiped. The merchants he used shut down. The trend moved on to the next hack like nothing happened. I applied for jobs. I got interviews until background checks hit. "We're going with other candidates. Your experience is impressive, but we're concerned about recent events." My name was searchable now. Penny guy, wife fraud, engineer negligence. Every night, I lay awake doing the same kind of math I used to do calmly. only now it was survival math. How long until savings runs out? How long until we have to sell? How long until Megan's mom owns our house on paper? That's when the most humiliating truth surfaced. I understood, for the first time, how people justify crimes with spreadsheets. I wasn't tempted to steal, but I understood the desperate craving for a number to go up so the fear goes down. And it made me sick. The final unraveling started with an IRS letter. It said we'd received unreported income tied to accounts flagged in a financial investigation. It wasn't accusing, exactly. It was inviting us into a nightmare with polite stationery. Our lawyer explained, even though we returned the $62,000, the government might still treat it as income or proceeds until proven otherwise. We'd have to document everything. Prove restitution, prove timing, prove intent. Then Priya called me directly, something she hadn't done before. I can't say much, she said, but you need to know this isn't over. I asked if they'd found the leaker. She hesitated. We found a trail, points upward, toward people who don't get fired for cause, people who get severance. She told me carefully that there was evidence someone inside the company had been exploiting a similar rounding behavior for months. Small amounts, quiet, not viral, using shell merchants and clean accounts. My mouth went dry. Before my code? Before your code, she confirmed, which meant my bug didn't create the crime. It just made it scalable, viral, loud. It didn't start the fire. It threw gasoline on something already smoldering. I thought about Dan pushing ship it. I thought about the laughing emojis. I thought about how quickly the exploit happened after deployment. The rounding mistake wasn't just mine. It was a system that rewarded speed over safety because money loves speed. And I was the guy who made it easier. Here's the part one can barely type without feeling like I'm confessing to something uglier than incompetence. When I went back through our bank records for the IRS, I found a deposit I hadn't noticed at the time, because it was small, and because I was so used to being in control. It was $187.43 into my personal savings account, labeled as a merchant rebate. I don't have a merchant account. I never have. I traced it. It came from the same credit union account Megan used. It hit my savings 2 days after I told her about the bug. Before I knew she'd kept going. Before I confronted her. Before the restitution. A sliver of stolen money had made its way into my account. Not because I asked for it. Not because I approved it. But because, somewhere in Megan's frantic rationalizations, she decided it would make me feel safer if I had a cushion, too. And the worst part, the part that permanently altered how I see myself, is that I didn't notice because I didn't want to look too closely. I was stressed, busy, afraid. I let my responsible identity do what it's always done. Assume the numbers mean I'm okay. So now, when I think back on the calm, rational guy I was in part one, I realize something brutal. Control is a story I told myself because it made me feel superior to people who get messy with money. I'm not superior. I'm just luckier until I wasn't. Megan and I are still in the same house, technically. We're polite, like co-workers after a scandal. We're paying lawyers instead of saving for college. Her mom holds our promissory note like a weapon. My career is a cautionary tale on a Facebook post I never wanted to star in. People online still talk about penny pumping like it was a funny phase. Clever trick. Free money. For me, it was a penny that rolled under the fridge and somehow toppled everything. And I keep coming back to the same quiet, awful question. If the money had been clean, if it had been a bonus, an inheritance, a legitimate windfall, would it have fixed anything? I don't think so, because the real trend I created wasn't on TikTok. It was the way money made the people I loved reveal who they were, and forced me to admit who I was when I thought no one was watching.